Kate Bishop is the successor of Hawkeye, so naturally you'd think she'd be way too similar to him, right? But actually, she has a lot more potential than you realize. And to understand where that potential comes from, let me start with her backstory. Kate Bishop is a regular woman born into wealthy publishing magnates Derek and Eleanor Bishop. One day she was kidnapped and used for ransom, but the Avengers, who were tracking the kidnapper, came in and rescued her. Hawkeye, the only one without any super abilities, stuck out to her, and from then on he became her role model, inspiring her to learn self-defense and archery. One night though, things took a dark turn and while jogging she got mugged, traumatizing her, but instead of letting it get to her, she took that as a call to action and worked even harder to improve her self-defense skills, mastering not just archery, but sword fighting and several different forms of combat training. Now that we're done with her story, let me get into her actual kid idea. And let me tell you, I have a lot of ideas for her. And I'm gonna start off by saying that I'm making her strategist. And the main reason why is because Hawkeye uses multiple arrow tips, but in Rivals, he technically only has two, the explosion and the sonic arrow. So I thought, instead of letting that go to waste, why not use that for Kit a little bit? And I think being a strategist kinda gives that a little bit more freedom for creative arrow tips and just creativity as a whole. Starting off with the main idea I have for her is making her a light DPS and very similar to Mantis where she shoots arrows like Hawkeye, but something I was worried about was a strategist being with one shot. So instead of giving her that charge that gives Hawkeye the ability to one tap, I instead wanted to replace it so that you can charge up your arrows on your teammates. And the longer you charge it, the more it heals. I didn't like the idea of just straight up arrows healing, so I thought of giving Kate the second exploding arrows that Hawkeye has, but instead of doing damage, they're like these healing salve arrows. And earlier I said I wanted her to be like Mantis, and by that I meant her heal arrows are also going to be on a cooldown, literally like Mantis' leaves, and Hawkeye's explosion arrows, along with the ability to reduce healing arrow cooldowns by doing damage. Now, onto her first ability. I mentioned that Hawkeye has a bunch of trick arrows for different situations, so I decided to make that an ability. Trick arrow. And the way I want it to work is by making a status effect arrow, but make it so it doesn't just have one status effect, but three. And the main idea was to make it randomized, but I know adding RNG is a terrible idea for competitive shooters, but Ruffles isn't really competitive. Not in the same way Overwatch is, or Valorant, or even COD. Rivals, like it or not, is extremely casual friendly. That's why the competitive system is not good. So I decided to lean into that casualty and thought a light RNG ability could be fun to play with. Plus, it could add a risk factor for divers. Let's say the effects are freeze, bleed, and blind as an example. Divers would have to think about which ability she has on the arrow and if they should even dive her in that moment because they risk being frozen, even if the other effects aren't as good. So it's not just a gamble on K using the arrow, but also a gamble on the diver. I know the RNG could be frustrating though because that could mean getting two really good arrows back to back or two bad arrows back to back. But that's also what I kinda like about it. It's random for literally everybody. But if it really is bad and unfun, then it could just easily be on rotation. Like again as an example would be blind, freeze, and bleed. That way the frustrating RNG of it is gone, but you still have those effects, and this makes it a little bit easier for enemies to track your arrows, so it's easier to play around. And of course it would have an icon on the ability display to show you what effect it has, so you're not totally clueless as the user. As for what actual effects it should have, honestly, it could be 3 of any in the game, like blind is actually a decent one in my opinion. Bleed is a bit weak but could still work. Maybe a grounded effect to stop divers or any other movement. I don't know. But the third could be a team up arrow. See, an idea I thought would be cool was to replace one of the arrows with a team up arrow, since team ups are now more cemented into the game. For example, let's say one of the team ups for K is with Luna Snow. So then that third effect could be freeze arrow, and the enhanced version could make it a penetration arrow that freezes the first 2 or more people it hits. Or it could be like Luna Clap, where it can now heal for a little bit if shot at teammates while still having that freeze at the end. So if both teams are brawling, you can shoot your enhanced arrow at them, heal your team a little bit, and still freeze someone. If anything, it'd be more similar to White Fox's charm, to be honest. Her second team up could be with Spider-Man maybe, and web them up, with the enhanced version being a mini AoE cluster bomb that could get more than one person if they're close enough, while also giving Spider-Man that web trace thing for him. If not, it could be Torch and set them on fire, Donner Blade for bleed, the thing for a grounder stun, Storm or Thor for an electric arrow, Elsa for a penetration arrow. Honestly, the possibilities are endless with that arrow team up idea, and I'm honestly quite proud for coming up with that, even if it's not a good idea. Now, I have 2 escape abilities. One idea is simple and technically not an escape ability, but I'm still gonna put it here, which is a smokescreen. Even this idea isn't as appealing to me, to be honest, because it's not really too useful. It'd be more visual clutter and it just doesn't really add anything to the game. The only way I could make it be more useful is by making it be able to heal people inside and maybe blind enemies while only inside, since it is a smokescreen. But I'm mostly still not sure about it. So my second idea is a cable arrow. For reference, Widowmaker's grappling hook. Not too strong of an escape, helpful for setting up and positioning, and maybe you could even go for a shots like Widowmaker. And this is where my ideas get wilder. So in the lore, Kay has mastered all sorts of fighting techniques. One of those techniques is fencing. And you know how Hawkeye has two swords, one for melee / deflecting while the other is actually for slashing? Well, I was thinking something faintly similar, but instead of giving her deflection, I thought of giving her a fencing sword with half the damage, but triple the crit damage. And I know that sounds stupid, but aren't fencing swords like technically weak and like fragile? So attacking the body technically wouldn't hurt, at least as much, because it could be a small cut, but the face is, you know, the face. So long thing sharp needle is gonna lobotomize you, hence the triple crit. I'm not 100% on this idea though. I mostly just brought this up because I like the fact that she knows how to fence and wanted to incorporate that somehow. Another idea that I got from reading up on her lore is that apparently she got this thing called the Kree Composite Soul Bow, and it's an alien bow basically. And in the comics they shoot big lasers. So one idea I had was to make it an ultimate, like that one Valorant guy. Basically copy and paste it. But obviously that's lame, so another idea I had was to make it a normal ability and make it more Storm Arrow-esque. Since I don't think it needs arrows, and in my head it doesn't need that much of a drawback since it looks like that. So a quick arrow burst could be possible. If you still don't like that idea, I have another ultimate idea. Instead of the giant laser copy paste, I was thinking she could shoot a bunch of arrows into the sky and one of two things happen. One, it's all in a straight line and just does a lot of damage and maybe do a random trick arrow effect, though I don't think I like that. So the other idea is she shoots a bunch of arrows into the sky, but they have a slight homing as they come down. So think of Iron Man's missiles when he's flying, but with a slight homing similar to Dagger's primary. And going back to the swordsmanship I talked about earlier, she was given an enhanced sword by someone called the Swordsman. And his sword can discharge energy blasts, shoot fire rays, project heat or light, release knockout gas, and or deliver electrical stun shocks. So naturally I thought of making this her secondary. Now hold on, let me cook. Guys, please. Blade has his own gun and sword form, right? So naturally I just kind of thought of giving Kate a similar idea. And we diverged away from her being a strategist, so let me reel it back in and tell you about my absolutely diabolical idea. When she goes into her sword form, she has an Inspire-like passive. I'm sorry. It's stupid, it's crazy, and probably really bad, I know. But I came up with this idea and I'm willing to get staked on this hill just for even thinking about it. So obviously it's gonna work similar to Brig. For those who don't know, it basically works by just dealing damage to someone and you let out a heal over time around you. And hey, if that's too scary, just make it so she lets out small heal bursts when she slashes like White Fox in her tilt form. And for her abilities, maybe you can release like some small AoE mist around you that causes a slight slow effect to be the quote unquote knockout gas. Cause I don't want it to actually sleep, so maybe just slow. Similar to like Storm's slow with her ability, with her enhanced one. For another ability, I can incorporate the stun shocks and make it be like quick bursts of slashes with very small AoE damage, since it is electrical shocks or energy blasts. And for the third ability, just a block with a meter. Just as some slight defense to help you live. On one hand, I don't want her sword form to be too strong or have many abilities, since her main thing is archery and she is the successor of Hawkeye, hence only giving the sword form 2 to 3 abilities. But on the other hand, I could be evil and lean into the strength of the sword and make it an ultimate. And also make it like Briggs Rally. Huge healing and damage AoE because of knockout gas plus the Inspire. Maybe keep the slow idea I had, and you know what? Okay, being able to shoot fire beams since it can do that. This is also just me mostly joking. The sword doesn't even have to be added, it could just be the fencing idea or not even added at all. I'm just one guy coming up with crazy ass ideas for dream characters I want in the game. I'm just bringing tools and abilities they've had in their stories and lore as potential ideas. And last but not least, her skins. For her default, she has a couple options. One is her basic light purple jumpsuit. Maybe even this one with a jacket on, which I think is cute. The second default skin idea could be the one where she has this crop top looking outfit. Personally not my favorite, but with how much Rivals sexualizes its women, this or spin-off version of this outfit is probably the most plausible. And a third idea, which I honestly kinda like the most, is where she has this more tactical geared up outfit where it makes her look a little bit more action ready in my opinion. And for the default recolors, they could just switch the purple with a lighter purple or magenta or honestly even pink. But whatever version they decide to go with, the others could easily be shop skins. And speaking of shop skins, I think it would be really cool if they added the live action Haley Steinfeld version as a skin. There's even a slightly altered version of it with Marvel Zombies, so they can use either since both are really cool and literally the same. Another really cool skin idea she could come out with is this one, where it's her original outfit using Mockingbird's battle staves and mask, Swordsman's sword, and Hawkeye's bow. It was way before she really had her own outfit, hence the mashup. And other skin ideas I got mostly came from the It's Jeff comics, because they're cute. One is this casual outfit which I genuinely really liked and I thought it was really cute. Another one is this, which I know is just turned the jumpsuit but with an apron on, but I really liked it and I thought she looked really good. Plus it could just be of blue rarity. They're all basically the same though, so most Kate skins would have to be original, but Rebels already kinda does that, so who cares? I know this video idea was crazy and long, so let me do a quick recap for those who are still realistically dumbfounded by my ideas. Her primary has two arrow types, the damage ones and her healing ones that you can charge up on teammates for more healing but have a limited amount, so you have to DPS tech on them back, like Mantis. A trick arrow that causes one of three effects, either on random or rotation, a grappling hook or smoke bomb that might heal, a secondary sword weapon that has block, the ability to release small AoE shocks on hits, and maybe a small, slight slow effect around her for the knockout gas. If not as an ability, then an ultimate where her Inspire is bigger, shortens her cooldowns, and maybe teammates. Kinda like a mini Gambit ult. The Kree Composite Soul could also be a Stormbrawl ability or one of two ults, the big laser one or the Sky Arrows with slight homing. Her melee could also be the Fencing Sword with half damage but triple crit. Her health could be 250 or 275. And for her damage, I was honestly thinking the same as Old Widow, although I don't know if that's a good or bad idea at this point, I'm just throwing stuff out there. And those are my ideas for Kate Bishop and Marvel Rebels. Crazy, I know, but a lot of potential and I think she could be fun. But tell me what you think, comment your own ideas, and next I'm gonna talk about Nightcrawler. Bye!